All right, welcome. This is a first and a trial. We're going to see if this has some success, but this is a podcast from the St. Louis Area Regional Training. So our concept here is to talk to people in the St. Louis Fire Service that are having success about topics that are relevant to us in the fire service in this area. So myself and Chief Corey Irelan kind of came up with this idea to just kind of highlight what's going well, some of the stars in our area, and so we're very pleased today to kind of highlight Captain Chip Ashford, St. Charles City Fire Department, and talk with him about culture, talk about training, and who knows where else this conversation will lead. I'm sure golf will get swayed in there somewhere, but this is the first, like I say, for us, we're going to put it out there, see if it has some success, and then if it does, who knows, who will be the second guest on this. Uh, we don't know, monthly, bi-monthly, who knows, weekly podcast, who knows, right? But so Chip, thanks for joining us, man.
No, thanks for having me. I didn't realize this was the inaugural
Yeah,
podcast. So
this
yeah,
is
big
The
it,
real
deal.
man.
real deal.
This is the first one. So you might be the first, you might be the last. Who knows, right? I
Yeah,
mean, it could be all
that's probably a good chance.
no, no, no. We'll see. It's good though. But no, I personally am excited. Like I've known you for a while now. I know you came from St. Louis City and now you're out in St. Charles City and some of the things you're doing in your stations. I've come by your station, on my own benefit just to kind of pitch some of my own ideas to your guys. But
Yeah,
talk about some of the things you're doing, in the training realm and kind of what you're seeing in the fire service today.
yeah. Well, obviously, what 6, 8 months ago, a year ago, whatever. Cheap Irelan game. Aaron, wrote that paper on death of the fire service, how we're losing our firehouse culture, right? And so that's one of those things we have talked about 100,000 times in the firehouse. How do we keep a culture? How do we build it from the bottom up? Do all the things we did. Aaron and I talk about it all the time. Like 18 years ago when I got to St. Charles City, like our shift was not the best shift, right? And there was just some older guys that were hanging on to some cultural things that weren't the best. And we had this turnover where you had me and Aaron and Jeff Twyman and Matt Hofer and Jeff Marvin. All these guys came in all at the same time, right? And so we had this ability to kind of take over what we wanted it to look like. And then 10 years later, we all got promoted, or 5 years later, we all got promoted. And then, that all just sort of kept going, right? So we talk about it all the time, and it's how do we bridge the gap between what you and I and Court, Chief Ireland, everybody we all grew up in with this younger generation coming in. And honestly, a lot of it we talk about is just education, right? And giving them the whys and the history of what it is and getting them to buy into that. John Woods, my driver, just retired a couple of weeks ago. And so I got a new driver, Travis Kirsten. He's great, young, super energetic, probably more energetic than I even want. I got to set him down every once in a while, right? But we got him to buy into the history and the culture of the department to where now he's driving the entire, collecting the history of the department and putting that all together and gathering pictures. And he just invited one of our retirees up. Kale came up last weekend for coffee and breakfast and brought a ton of pictures in for him. And he's starting to collect all that stuff. And I think that's where it starts for us is on day one. Part of our orientation when they come in the door, Travis does about a 30 or 40-minute history lesson on the history of St. Charles Fire Department. We started in 1861. This is where we're at. This is where we're going. And we just kind of built it off of that. And, it's been a lot of work. You know that, Brian. I mean, it's not easy. It's taken a lot of time. So,
Yeah, I think I remember when we had the Fools meeting out at the brewery with Chief
yeah,
Halton. And were we talking about the same guy? Is that the same guy
yeah,
that
yeah,
yes,
yeah,
okay. Yeah, that was phenomenal because I remember him talking about, you know, he was a pretty new guy at the time. Uh
right.
and so I mean, I was just kind of blown away that this guy who he come from St. Louis City, if I'm correct, right?
Oh, so that was Nick who originally
Oh,
started it, right? And so
okay, okay,
Nick
okay.
actually became a police officer now. He
Well, there
went
goes
to
that
St.
story. There goes that success story. Never mind.
He went to St. Charles City Police, but he took all of that. Him and Travis were like best friends, and
Okay.
so
What you do to
that's
him,
why
Chip?
Travis.
Yeah,
What's
what
that?
happened?
What'd you do to him?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, it was one of those things that he always wanted to be a police officer, and that's what he wanted to do. And I mean, he had the opportunity to do it there in St. Charles, and so I mean, he loves it. He's having a blast. He comes by the firehouse all the time and talks to the guys all the time. I mean, he may or may not have snuck into somebody's bedroom at 3 o'clock in the morning the other night and
Nice.
woke him up in the middle of the
Nice.
night. But Travis and him were best friends, and so Travis took that on as part of what Nick was trying to build and everything else. And but I agree with you. I mean, that's what Nick came from St. Louis City. He was born and raised in St. Charles, and he had a buy-in to that of what he seen the benefit was to like my family lives here. I was born and raised here. My wife and kids still live here. And a lot of these guys are the same way. We've got Adam Solomon. There's a ton of guys that grew up in that and grew up in St. Charles. So they bought into that, and I think it means more too in those moments where Travis or Nick or any of these guys are sitting them down and saying, "Hey, uh, we need you to be who we need you to be when you come to work, right? When you roll out the door, you could be going to my parents' house, or you could be going to my kid's house, or whatever it is. And if you're not willing to lay it all out there and dive through the second floor window for my kid, like go somewhere else.
Yeah.
I don't want you here. You know what I mean? And that's sort of where it starts at on day one. So I think if you catch them that way, it kind of starts building that and going from there.
Chip, do you think that makes a difference, creating a culture like that when the people are kind of all from that area? Because I recall like I remember my first days, weeks, months when I was at St. Charles out there and having like I didn't know anything about St. Charles until I went to put my application and like
Right.
literally nothing about the area or anything. And I felt a lot like an outsider kind of coming in because everybody that worked there was, hey, it's my brother that's on the council, my
Oh
uncle,
yeah.
police chief, my aunt, is the secretary, and like everything was, really ingrained. But do you think that makes a difference when you have that kind of that skin in the game, if you will, that you're from that area, your family lives there, stuff like that? Or
Yeah.
do you think that's just the way it was at St. Charles, but it's not a significant factor for anybody else trying to recreate what you've done?
No, I think it's a huge factor, Core. I mean, and you don't have to have everybody, right? But you need this core group of people that drive it and get apart. I mean, obviously living over here in Illinois, like there's a benefit to all these places still having a residency rule, right? Everybody has to live in the city that they work, and not that I necessarily agree with it, right? But we have a lot of guys from Cape Girardeau, and they still live in Cape, and nothing against them or anything else. There are a lot of great dudes that are great firemen, but getting them to be part of the community outreach, getting them to come to union meetings, getting them to be a part of some of that stuff is really hard for them. And some of them do a great job. They come, when we do a B shift night out at the baseball game, they'll come up and get a hotel room. They'll go with us and they'll do all the stuff. But that regular day in, day out being a part of it, it's really hard when you're not at least close, right? You don't necessarily have to live in the city. Like Bryce, my senior guy, lives, right outside the city in Heritage. Well, he's there all the time. He goes to the high schools and does all our education stuff. He's working part time in the fire marshal's office. Like, you know what I mean? Like he's a part of everything every day.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think it's a huge benefit.
So you talked about ownership. So I think that's a huge thing. And like I even see that where I'm at now, like at Kirkwood, like I always say people want to feel valued and they want to be part of the winning culture, the winning team. I use the analogy of like, Nolan Arenado wanted to get traded, even though he's making $27 million a year, which for all of us, we're like, hey, dude, I'll be on the losing team all day long for 27 million, dude. Just put me in wherever you want me to. But, for people though, like that's a huge thing, right? They want to be part of a winning team. They want to be part of a winning culture and they want to be part of something bigger than themselves. At least I think,
Yeah.
and so I think if you can do that, like that's something that we're trying to do with training and things at Kirkwood is like, how do we create opportunities for people to feel valued? How do we create opportunities for them to better themselves, that better the organization? We had shift meetings and I was telling our guys, I was super proud of our people because we've really embraced the certification thing, which, I know people would
Sure.
probably bash me for it, but both sides of it. But we had like 37 people that had instructor one of a 55-person department, which I was like uber proud of because I'm like, man, it just these people are taking classes and you get text messages from guys about, hey, I'm going to take this test. I'm excited about, getting a certification for the department. And so, how does that play into like what you guys are doing? Because I know you guys are doing a lot of training as well. In how does your training, both at the company and the shift level, impact what you guys are culturally doing?
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously that's one of the reasons why Travis came over and wanted to drive for me is a training aspect, right? Like I know you're going to push me and we're going to do a lot of stuff. So I think everybody wants to. One of the things that, Chief Grignani just took over, um, And one of the things he always talks about is it's not just training, but it's fireman training, right? Like guys want fireman training. They want to feel like a fireman. And that's where you get them to buy in. And there's stuff that we have to do, right? Like we all know that there's certain classes and things that we just have to get through and do whatever, but it's putting value in the training. And so that's one thing he got approved this year, which was a pretty heavy lift, right? From a financial standpoint, is that we're going to do live burns at St. Louis County's tower off duty on overtime so that the whole shift can actually go together and run like 5 companies on a first alarm, 6 companies on a first alarm. And it's on our day off. So we're not having to go back to the firehouse. We don't have to, deal with all that stuff. And obviously it costs money for overtime, right? But guys are super excited about it. Like, he put it out there like, hey, if you're not going to be able to make it, let me know. And there's literally one guy that said, oh, I'm going to be out of town. Like everybody else is like in. So I think it's just making them feel like they're doing fireman stuff and putting some valuable training out there for them and working through those processes. And that's one of the things too, like we put out the training division every year. And I think for us, the value in our training division too, is that Chief Young's been in charge of it. It sounds like Chief Burlingame is going to be taking it over since he moved up to deputy chief. But then we have a captain or a guy on each shift that is a training rep for each shift. And so getting them involved in being a part of it, but 2, like those guys get to go out and talk to their guys and like, hey, what's really important to you? What do you want to see this year? Like we put out a survey this year before, for next year, like what do you want to see next year? How do you want this to go? And so I got to sit in the meeting and go through that process of what, like how are we going to set up next year and what's our plans? And a lot of it was based around the survey of what the guys wanted, So I think there's value in that. And to your point, like I think it's everything, right? It's like our truck committee. We have guys from each shift and all that stuff that are part of the truck committee, and they actually have value in what they're putting into it. We listen to them. And the gear committee, we have guys from every shift. They get to pick what they wear. And we have a uniform committee that they get to pick what they wear. Obviously the chiefs have final say on all of it, right? Just to make sure that there's some accountability there. But the guys buy into that, and guys are constantly stepping up, wanting to be a part of that. And so, I think that's a big part of this younger generation is they want to feel like they have a say and they have some value.
So you have a chief officer that's in charge of training, and then one captain per shift that are all involved in that as well. So it's like, so what are you talking about? 4 people basically are running the program.
Yeah. And essentially, at the battalion chief level, like he's just the purse strings, right? Like he handles the money, he handles the scheduling, all that stuff. And the guys at the shift level are the ones that are actually doing the teaching and getting out and doing it. So, and it doesn't have to be a captain. A lot of times it ends up being that way, but like Justin Williams is our training guy on our shift. He's just all in all the time. So he enjoys doing it. And so why not let him do it? It doesn't have to be a captain. But he's a senior, he's been around for 12 or 13 years, right? It's, but even at that core, that like even getting the younger guys involved when we did some Maydays and search training stuff over at the old Trinary building before they tore it down. One of the guys went to Wichita Hot and took a bunch of classes on, dummy drags and all this other stuff. And we let him teach it. He's got a year and a half on the job, but he came back and wanted to teach it. And why not let him, right? I mean, if he's super eager about it, and he loved every minute of it, right? And so it's just, again, it's balancing it between what we used to think the fire service was and getting these guys to finding a way to get them to buy in at the younger generation level.
Yeah. I think that's huge because like
I don't know where you pushed. I'm sorry, bro.
No, good.
The lesson learned, like, is there a situation where maybe you pushed a little hard, and you're like, okay, we need to back off that a little bit, or any lessons learned on way you've done things that maybe didn't turn out like you thought it would and how you readjusted and made it work the next time?
Oh yeah. I mean, we screw stuff. I screw stuff up all the time. Like, I mean, it's definitely even from a cultural, thing of like, I've had to learn a lot with these guys. I grew up like you guys did. Like it was shut up, sit down and do what you're told. And, you just didn't ask questions and you did what you were told to do. Right. And, this younger guys just want to know why. And so I had older senior guys when I first got promoted. And I could talk to them that way. Like, hey, what the fuck are you doing? You know what I mean? Well, now I had to learn the hard way that not everybody responds the same way. And so, and I think from a training level, we did the same stuff, right? Like, we just pushed things out and did what we thought was right. And at some point we said, not everybody is always responding to those things. And so take a step back and go, okay, why, and start asking those questions. Sometimes that's it, right? It's just getting out and asking the questions and why didn't it work? What did you not like about it? This culture class, I think that's one of the things that's helped us a ton. B-Game and I both, like his son just went through St. Louis County's academy, 2 classes ago. My son just graduated the academy over here. And being able to ask an 18 or 19-year-old kid, like, what's important to you going forward in the fire service? Like, what are you thinking about right now? What are you,
Yeah.
and realizing for both of them, like, they ain't thinking about money. They don't care about how much they're going to make. Like, you know what I mean? They're worried about culture. They're worried about what it's like to be in the firehouse. Like, you know what I mean? And I mean, culturally, that's one of the things we talk about all the time is like, we're a municipal department. We're never going to make district money. We're not going to have some of the things that some of the districts do, right? All we have is culture. And so if we can drive the training part of it, if we can drive the cultural part of it, and make people just really happy to come to work, hopefully they stay and they don't even look at other places. I mean, I think that's why it's important. It all wraps in together all the way around.
Yeah.
I
That's
don't know if
good.
that answers your question, but
Oh, I did. Absolutely. No, for sure. Yeah.
I think that's such a true statement too, is like these, people want job satisfaction. And, I think, for the most part around the county, around the region, there's some discrepancies and differences in pays. There's no doubt about it. But more people I talk to are more wanting to come in, to your point, enjoy coming to work, enjoy who they work with, having a good time at work, being challenged with training and calls and some, opportunities to do things. I don't think there's anybody that really wants to go to the firehouse and just quote unquote sit in a recliner. I mean, there's probably some. I don't doubt that there's some, right? But like the majority of the new people coming into the job, they don't want to do that, right? They want to be challenged. They want to do fireman stuff, like you said. Um, I was going to ask you about a key point you thought, like, when I started the fire service, you didn't do anything, like you couldn't be in charge of anything unless you were an officer, right? Like the officers in charge of this, the officers in charge of that. Like you got to be. And I was like, man, I don't understand that, because this captain that's in charge of it has no passion for that project. And so, I think you mentioned like, hey, our training guy, he's a 13-year guy, but he's a firefighter, right? And maybe he's completely content being a firefighter. Like he doesn't want to promote up, but he's really good at the training. How important, and Corey, chime in too, is like, from both your guys' perspectives, how important is that to the culture of the fire service to empower people, regardless of rank, if they have passion for a project?
Yeah. Huge.
yeah, I mean, I think that's huge, right? And what ends up happening, right? Justin's number 3 on the captain's list. He's going to get promoted this year, right? And it's part of that succession. I mean, that's what we talk about. It's not just bringing them up, but it's succession planning, right? Like if I can get that guy to buy in and be passionate about the training part of it and show what he wants to do, and he gets out and takes some classes and makes himself better, and the hope is eventually he moves up in rank, and we're promoting him because of that, right? Um, no, I think we do it with everything, right? It's not just like when we built the truck committee. Yes, there's a battalion chief on it. He's in charge of the vehicles. But then there's the engineers that actually drive those trucks are on the committee. We put a couple of firemen on the committee because I want them to pick where the tools go and how they want the layout and what attack packages are on there. Like we're these next 2 engines, it looks like we're going to low hose beds, everything off the rear, short wheelbase, and that's the fireman driving that. Like, hey man, when I pull up, this is what I want. And I think that started back, when Jamie and Tim Morshing was still there as a battalion chief in charge of training, and Jamie and I were in the training division. And, we started that conversations of like, when we switched our hose packages to key hose and low flow hose and smooth bore nozzles, when we started looking at that, I was like, I'm not the one pulling. I'm not the one flowing water. Like, yes, I have an opinion, but let's put Tyler Beecham and Adam Solomon that came from St. Louis City, and Tyler came from Columbia, and all these guys with a lot of experience, and they're firemen, the ones that are pulling the lines off the back of the truck. Like, let them pick.
Yeah.
Like, and as Joe always puts it, like at the end of the day, what they pick, they're stuck with. So if they don't like it afterwards, it's their fault, right? We weren't shoving it down their throat. They got to pick what they wanted. So I think that's where a lot of the value comes in too, right? And you're getting buy-in because they feel like, oh, this is my project.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good.
No, I think it's huge. I think it's huge. I think to your point, like you say, people want to have buy-in. They want to be part of it. You can't own a department if you're not part of it. If the only thing you're doing in your department is showing up for your rotation and you're not having, a say in what's going on or have an influence or trying to have influence or be heard, I think you're missing the boat, because I mean, we're all doing stuff. I mean, I think, all of us can contest on this meeting right now is like, all of us jumped on the fire service because it was a cool occupation. It was fun. You got to be part of a team, got to do things,
Yeah.
help people. None of us thought, hey, I want to get rich doing this. And the things we're doing now, I mean, never in a million years did I think like, oh man, someday I really want to be on a podcast with two other guys from the region, like on a computer, right?
Right.
Like, it wasn't like a goal, right? Like the goal at that
Right.
time, was like, hey, I hope we get to fire this rotation. That was the goal, right? And so obviously things change, times change, and as you evolve in the fire service. But I think, like you say, starting young with these firefighters, letting them know, hey, this is a good place to work, right? Like, I'm a municipal fire department too, right? And so like, it's a good place to work. Are you going to get super rich there? No, but you're going to have some fun. We're going to leave you alone. We're going to have a good time. We're going to get you the equipment that you need to do the job you need. We're going to get you involved in stuff. And, that's the culture that we can create. In like you said, with limited funding. And so
Sure.
and I think
Well,
that works, right? I think that right, wrong, or indifferent, and that can happen in a department, it can happen in a district. It's letting
yeah.
those people know that like, hey, listen, this is your organization. We just had our station logos. I'll tell you this story, but like we had our station logos redone, and one of our captains came to me. He's like, hey, can we redo these station logos? Our guys really don't like it. It wasn't, I don't care what you guys have, right? Like vinyl's
Right.
cheap. You guys got to own it. It's on your trucks, and stuff like that, that I think sometimes get stifled by administrations for whatever weird reason. Really can stymie a good culture and letting you guys have a say in their day and a say in their organization and promoting that camaraderie that we want to see.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was going to say, Brian. Like Joe and I talk about, it's about, somebody told me this, like creating a yes culture, right? Like if a guy comes to you, and especially if it costs you nothing, why would you not say yes?
Yep.
Right. If I come to you and I'm like, Chief, uh, we just switched we're letting guys wear station hats on duty, right? The guys buy them on their own, right? It comes out of their uniform allowance is in their paycheck. Chief, we want to switch these station hats. We'll make them uniform. We'll, yes, you have final say on them. Like you have to sign off on them and all that stuff, but it costs you nothing. That's a huge morale win. And he's like, yes, sure, go. The guys are going to do the work. You don't. We literally just need you to say yes. Like that's it, right? And so there's so many of those things sometimes that I think we forget about, that it's just like we don't understand, or maybe it's not important to achieve, or you know what I mean? It's just not on your radar. Like, whatever. I don't know. It doesn't seem important to you, but it may be really important to the guys,
Right.
and if you can pay attention, like a few years ago, the question was posed, we were doing our turnout gear, and the back of our gear says City of St. Charles. And a prior chief asked, that wasn't from our department. And, he's like, well, can we put just like SCFD? Why do we got to put that on there? I'm like, because it's always been that way. And the guys will lose their shit if, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's a dumb little thing, but they will. They'd be like, what did you do? Like,
Right.
you know what I mean? And it's been that way forever. So why change it? Just leave it alone. And again, it doesn't cost anything extra. It doesn't cost you anything. It's a morale win, right? And when I convinced them to go to leather helmets, right? I mean, it was if I can make it fit in the budget, I have my budget. If I can make it fit in the budget, are you good with this? And he's like, okay, but that's your budget. And I'm like, okay. And we did what we had to do to switch it around and make it work. And, we got it done. So and that was where Tim Worshing was really great with that, right? Like, here's your budget. I don't care what you do. Is it NFPA and does it meet the criteria of what we need? Cool. As long as you fit your budget, I don't care. And I'll get out of your way. You guys are the ones wearing the stuff. I don't care, right? And the guys did all the work, and they put in all the effort and got it all done. So
You don't understand, like it's hard to understand the impact of that, when somebody
right,
wants to do something that doesn't cost a dime, and the effect that can have. When I was
right,
a brand new firefighter out there, I was
yeah,
sitting at the kitchen table, um, eating my cereal, and the fire chief walks in, who's long gone from there,
yeah,
obviously. He walks in and sits down at the table and opens up the paper, gets some coffee, and he starts reading the paper. Didn't say the day I left, he still didn't know my name. It is what it
Right.
is. But I'm just sitting there and let it go for a minute, and I go, "Hey, Chief, I got a question for you." And without moving the paper down, he goes, "No."
Right.
I go, no, seriously. We all have those older Bullard helmets, the dome helmets, and there's two guys that are trying the traditional style helmets, the composite ones.
Right.
And I said, if I bought one of those out of my own pocket and made it look exactly like theirs, would it be okay if I wore that on duty? And he drops the paper and he goes, "Probably didn't you hear what I said?" Flips the paper back up.
Right.
Like, the effect that has on people. You know what I mean? Like belittles
Oh,
you and makes you feel like you're not important
yeah.
and
Well, and that's one of the stories we talk about, like,
professional.
um, in our culture class too, like even from a training standpoint, like taking it all the way back, right? If I walk in, we traditionally don't do things on the weekends, right? That's kind of our day to, we don't plan, we try to keep things to a minimum. We're so busy through the week. We try to give the guys a little bit of time off and work out and do their own thing on the weekends. And in the beginning, we don't have this problem anymore, but in the beginning, we had these people pushing back when some of the younger guys wanted to train on the weekends, right? And so I had to explain it to some of the older guys, like, if I sit at the kitchen table having breakfast on Saturday morning and this kid with 2 days on the job walks in, he's like, "Cap, can we like really go out? Can we throw ladders today? Can we pull some lines? Can we do whatever?" And if I look at him and go, "No, it's the weekend," do you think he's ever going to ask me ever again for anything? No, he's going to be like, "Well, no, I know the answer already without even asking," right? Um, or is there value in me saying, "Yeah, man, I got you. Let's go," right? And let's clean up for breakfast. I'll take you out there. We'll go. And you look at the senior guys and go, if you want to come, great. If you don't, I understand it's a weekend. Take it easy, relax. I'm not asking you to get in gear, whatever. Just I'm going to take the new kid out there and do whatever. And then what happens is me and the new kid go out there, and then 5 minutes later, the senior guy comes out like,
What's
"Hey,
going
hey,
on?
what are you doing? What are you doing out here? What are you showing them?" Right. And then he puts his 2 cents in. And then the next guy comes out, puts his 2 cents in. And next, the whole crew's out there and everybody's bought into it. Right. And when I got a lot of pushback from that in the beginning from other shifts, like, "Oh, what are you doing?" I'm like, "Dude, I'm not going to tell this kid no. I'm just not." Right. And if he wants to do it, or the whole crew, if the whole crew wants to do it, like, I'm not going to tell him no. I don't care if it's Sunday morning. Like, we'll do what we got to do. What's an hour? Right. I mean, big deal. So,
Well, like you said earlier too, we're at a firehouse to do fireman stuff. So let's act
right.
like it. And so I think that's a huge statement. I love the yes culture. I think that's that was one of the things we have a citizens finance committee where I work. And so that was one of the things the citizens finance tasked us with a couple of years ago was like find non-monetary ways to improve culture. And to
Right.
your point, it's like, hey, they want a new jacket. It doesn't cost me anything. That budget's already set, right? So like
Right.
it's going to have the same logo that the sweatshirt has. It's just a different style.
Right.
Why does it matter, right? It's a jacket. I mean, let's all agree in the fire service today, our uniform is pretty much a Maltese cross,
Right.
blue or white or gray or
Right.
green. I mean, like we have so many different colors even nowadays. So like, hey, at least ours still says Kirkwood on it. Like I've seen some places where it's literally just a
Right.
Maltese cross. So, in people would argue back and forth. I get it. Like we've lost some of that erosion of culture, but I think where that logo still stands as true is good for us. And then to your point, like now they want to impart their own logo, like the station logos and things like that. Like you got the hat on there, the truck hat on. So, it might be a little different than per se when we started, but
Right.
that's their culture, right? Like I'm not in the firehouse, so how should I dictate what they should be doing? And so I think that's part of the challenge sometimes is like, hey, that's what you guys want, man. If that's what's going to make you guys happy and more productive, cool, let's do it or try to
Well,
do it.
that, Brian. Guys are proud of it. Like if you start doing station logos and all that stuff, they get proud of that shit, right? And
Oh
they want
yeah.
to wear it. They want to be a part of it. So why would
Mhm.
I say no? Like why
Right.
would we not foster that and be a part of that? And when Travis came over the other day and I did the expectations talk, and we sat down and went through all the things that I wanted. One of the things I do when I get a new guy or somebody new to the company, obviously you guys know about Nancy Drive and that whole class that we did, and we talk about the domino theory. One of the things I give him is a domino, and we talk about the domino theory and how not to be a domino, right? And so I asked him to put it on his helmet, put it in his pocket, like whatever he wants to do as a reminder. I give him a patch and I give him a shirt, a station shirt. right? And like you're part of the company now. You're, and for new guys, we don't give it to them on day one. They got to earn it, right?
Yeah.
And so their first leadoff, their first, whatever. And I let the crew pick when they've earned it, right? It's not necessarily up to me. I let the guys pick it. And it may be when they got probation, whatever it is, but that's something that they've earned. And so we hand them all of that stuff, and it works out perfect if you can get that right day. Like St. John got his first lead off, and I was able to walk back to the firehouse. He's standing there hot and sweaty and cleaning shit up. And then you hand him a hoodie and a patch and stuff. And like, it makes it a big deal. Right. And so, but why would we not do that stuff?
Well,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's so simple. I was thinking like us, like we do the 1 year coin. You got to wait there a year. You could challenge coin 1 year, 5 years, you get a badge with your name on it. So little things like that. I think, uh, and I love the fact that like you guys are taking that ownership at the company level, right? Like you're not looking for the organization to sponsor those things. Like, hey, this is us. Like this is our department. You know,
Right.
that's super super cool. I just I just think
Well,
like
and
like you said, it's such a cool job. I mean, all of us have a high passion and love for this job, and so it's cool to see stuff like that.
yeah, and Chief Greg Downey, one of the things him and I talk all the time, and it's like, I want to recreate a blue collar fire department. I want it to be a bunch of blue collar firemen that want to do blue collar fireman shit, right?
Yeah.
And he goes, I get excited, even as a chief now. He goes, it's hard not being on the truck, but to listen to the radio and hear them doing cowboy shit, like I get fucking excited and want to come in and be a part of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so how do we create that? How do we keep that going? How do we get that passion going? And that's where we have to do all these little things, right? And at the 1 year mark, so that's what we do with the leather helmets, because there's a build out process and all that stuff with the leather helmets. We just did it for our 2 new guys on our shift. They're hitting their 1 year mark. So we took them, we ran them through a scenario. So they had to come off the truck, BES the second floor window, pull a victim out of the window, stretch a line, go to the basement, and find a victim. And we use a fireman in gear, and they have to drag them all the way up to the second floor, up the steps back to the first floor at Station 5. I mean, it's hard, right? And so at the end, when they do really well at it and they essentially pass, we take them outside. They're hot and sweaty, and we do all that stuff, and we hand them their leather helmet with their frontispiece on it. And here, man, you made it. You're off probation. Here's your leather helmet. You're part of the deal. And then they might get dumped a bucket of water on their head or something, whatever. But shit happens, right? But those guys, and everybody's always been excited, but it was fun to see this time with Eddie and Josh. Like they were excited. Like I've never seen anybody like Eddie was with me the 2 rotations before, and he probably threw a 28-foot ladder and VES the second floor at the station probably 26 times in 2 days, because he was so excited knowing, like, I want to be perfect at this. I want to be really good at it when I get tested on it. And so it's just those things and it's exciting for me to see, right? When you start, it's working, right? When the guys are that excited about it.
When did that start? When did you guys start doing that?
Our shift, we started doing it a couple of years ago. And then we've now got all 3 shifts to buy in. Chief Young, came out to one of them recently and was like, all right, we need to start doing this across the board. And it's not like, I mean, I think we're going to try to kind of set a standard of what it looks like every time now. But really it's setting up, whether it's coming off the truck, force the door, stretch a line, do a search, just put some kind of a small training package together, that makes them show that they're actually put the work in over the last year, and put a little bit of effort into it, and guys have bought into it. So
That's cool.
we also, I mean, that's one thing. And back to what you asked earlier too, Brian, about getting guys to buy in, is really trying to. This year, we're working really hard on pushing the senior man culture. We've always had one at some level. Some shifts were better than others, depending on the captains and who was allowing them to do that. And so Aaron Buchanan, Aaron came from the city and came out, and the city has a very strong senior man culture. That's where I got it, and a lot of people. And so we actually formalized it, though. We wrote everything down and basically put a checklist together of like things a senior man should be doing for the new guy when he comes in the firehouse, and made a actual reference book for them to actually, like, because part of this, right, we're such a young department, like the next guy on our shift to be a senior guy has 5 years on him.
It's crazy.
He's still learning how to be a fireman, right? Much less a senior guy, right? And so this is a reference tool for him, though, too, to be able to go back and be like, how do I treat these new guys? What should I be doing with them? And to Joe's point, Joe's super smart about this. I would have never thought about it this way. Everything that we're doing with all this stuff, like the new hire thing with the helmets, the senior man stuff, like we're trying to write it all down so that 20 years from now, when we're all gone, there's something for them to go back to say, oh, this is what we've been doing. There's actually a formal written down process to it. Our retirement ceremony, like all this stuff, we're writing it all down now. And I would have never even thought about it that way either. Like it's just firehouses, we've just always done whatever we did, right? And
Yeah.
so to actually formalize it's been cool to be able to know that guys have a place to go back to.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned the retirement thing. We've had a few over the past few years at Kirkwood, and we finally wrote it down. Like, right, it was just one of those things. Like, we do a flag ceremony, and so, but it was one of those. We don't have a per se honor guard, but we kind of got like a I don't know what you call it, like a you know ceremony committee, if you will. And so these
Sure.
guys took ownership of it, and they're like, hey, we like to, when we fold the flag, we like to have gloves on, we like to do this and that, and I'm like, absolutely. We bought speakers, and now we have a formal process that every time somebody retires, they get this, and this, and we have the donuts and the coffee, and their families invited.
Sure.
And it was just one of those things. Like, was there great discrepancies across the board with what we did this time versus last time? No, but we always missed some little part, right? And it was
Right.
always somebody that knew, like, hey, this time you didn't have flowers for that guy's wife. Oh my God.
Oh yeah.
Right, we totally forgot that. And so now that everything's written down, one, it makes it a lot easier to manage. But two, like to your point, in 20 years from now, like that's what we do. That's just
Right.
what we do. So it's really cool to see.
Yeah, and just everything with that, just trying to remember all this cultural stuff and put it in a formal process instead of just assuming people are going to remember, right? Because it just, like you said, it's not on purpose. Things just fall through the cracks sometimes.
Yeah.
They forget somebody's out of town that's in charge of it, or
Mhm.
whatever it is. And even that's one thing I got to start working on is like our award ceremony that we brought back a few years ago. Is like I need to start writing that down and putting a formal process to it. Um, it's all been going fine and whatever. And that was a cultural change too, right? To get guys to buy into an award ceremony and get recognized. And a lot of the older guys like, I don't want to come to that shit. And I don't want to, whatever. And then like reminding them that it's not always just about us and it's about our families and it's about, we have the mayor there and we have the city council there. And, all these people are involved that when Joe goes to ask for brand new fire trucks, like maybe we invite him to this stuff and it makes a difference. When I need millions of dollars for stuff.
Totally agree. Totally agree. All right, fellas, any thoughts? We've been going about 40 minutes. It's been crazy. It's been a great conversation, but
I got two questions for you,
yeah.
Chip. What do you
Yeah.
what do you love about the fire service, and what do you not like about the fire service? Put you
Oof. Oof. Uh, I think going back, so obviously my dad was a fireman for 25 years. I grew up in a firehouse.
Where was he at?
Over here in Grant. Well, he was a volunteer up in Godfrey is where he started.
Huh?
And then was a volunteer at Long Lake and Pontoon Beach, and then got hired. You remember the old Army depot there in Granite City?
I do not.
The CMPC. It was a Army depot right there, and it was a contract fire department. They were a union fire department that was contracted by the Army to provide for the base. And then they ran. Granite City was always so short staffed. They had two-man engine companies, so they ran all the mutual aid with Granite City. Like every fire they had, they would come off the base and come out. And so he worked there for 25 years, retired, went to Florida. But growing up around a firehouse, like all I knew was the firehouse culture, right? And what the ball busting and the just being around the guys and the meals and all that stuff. And so when I got into the fire service, especially as we've all grown, I would say the thing that I wasn't expecting that is the most difficult sometimes is the politics, right? Politics of dealing with city councils, the politics of dealing with, you know, contracts and just all this other stuff. And I know it's a part that we have to be a part of, and it's whether it's at state level or the federal level, or I just didn't expect that, right? And it was sort of a surprise. And I think that's the part I struggle with the most sometimes is
Mhm.
I know it's an evil that we have to do, but it's not my favorite. What I love about it, I mean, it's just the guys, right? And a kid said this, we were teaching out at O'Fallon the other day, Cody Willis, who worked for us for a little bit and then went out to O'Fallon. And I think he probably said it one of the best I've ever heard a young guy say. I get to come to 48 hours and hang out with my best friends and do cool shit. Right. And I think that's where I try to get myself back because we all struggle, right? I mean, you can't be in this career for a long time and not have good days and bad days and days you don't want to come to work and, whatever. It's just part of the deal. Right. And so I try to remember that and just get myself back around the guys and do fun, like let's go drive around, set the ladder up and just go do fireman stuff today and stop worrying about all the other bullshit that gets in the way sometimes. And I think that's where, and getting like that re-energizing thing of like, I just went down to the Alamo Fire Conference last week in San Antonio and having dinner with Mike Champo and getting to hang out with, Frank Lieb and some of the other guys and seeing them with 30, 35, 40-year careers and how much they still love the fire service. And it just re-energizes me into like, all right, let's get back to work and do the cool stuff. And now I got this super excited driver that like is over the top to be with us and come to work every day. And so it's just re-energizing to be around them. And yeah.
Nice.
Nice.
It's funny you say that about the people because like, I don't know about you, Brian, but sometimes, you have a long week or month or whatever, you get you some firehouse therapy. There's nothing better than that. And showing up, everybody's sitting around the kitchen table and you walk in and sit down and, BS with them. There's nothing better. Those
Yeah, the old fun days. The good old days. No, I think it's true. You said that about like getting out and doing stuff. I told one of our captains one time because he had kind of had a guy that was on his truck and he was kind of he really wasn't a real happy guy, right? And I said, man, get out of the station, dude. Just it's hard to complain when you're on a fire truck. Like it just I don't know how you can, right? You're on a
Yeah.
truck, you get to go do stuff, you're driving around town. Just get out of the firehouse and go out and do something. Whether you're just driving around, you're pulling up, you're spotting apparatus, like you said, getting on a roof of a commercial building. There's so many things you can do that don't take a whole lot of effort, right?
Yeah.
Uh, I've told our guys, I'm like, just get out and go see buildings, go look at fire alarm systems, go look at sprinkler connections, go look at like, get on a commercial building, like I say, like walk a commercial building roof so that you know what a soft spongy roof feels like versus like, oh, that's just what it normally feels like, like
Right.
how many people have never done that. I built a little, sounds goofy, but it was a little PVC uh, chainsaw, right? It was out of PVC and had chalk. I said, just practice like, a 7, 8, 9 cut, just do those silly things that like you can
Right.
do that don't cost any money, right? But you put a little bit of effort into it. It makes your company stronger. And like I say, it just creates a good winning culture that we all want to be part of, like it doesn't matter. Like, even now in the position where I'm no longer able to have fun and go on a fire truck, which is very disappointing, I can tell you. I think Corey
Yeah.
would probably agree that if you can go back and be on a truck once in a while, it'd probably be a good thing. Um,
Right.
but I also want to be part of a department that like enjoys coming to work, that like the people want to be there, the people want to have fun, and I want to support that. Like that's, I don't want to be part of a miserable fire department where everybody's like, oh, this is terrible. I can't stand
Right.
being here. Everybody hates it, and we don't ever want to go to fires or do anything cool. It's like, no, that's miserable.
Well, two things I just thought about while we were talking about this. One is Frank Lieb said this in his keynote down in San Antonio that it hit home really hard for me. And I think there's a bunch of different layers to it. We don't have to go all the way down the rabbit hole, but how do you kill a slug? You kill them with salt, right? Like, and putting a bunch of salty firemen around a slug, how do you fix that, right? And that just hit home so much. Like, not that you're trying to get rid of that guy necessarily, but to your point, right? You got that guy that's kind of a slug in the firehouse and he doesn't want to do anything, and you just make him get on the fire truck and go, cover him in with a bunch of salty firemen. Like he's gonna come up at some. He's either gonna come up or he's not gonna want to be there, right? Like it's gonna be one of two things. And so that like resonated with me a ton. And to the culture apart and things in the firehouse. And when you originally asked me that, like I just thought of is like it to me, it's just having these conversations, right? Like every day after dinner, we go sit outside, we go to the back of the bay table, smoke a cigar, hang out with the guys, whatever we're doing, right? But this is what we talk about, right? We just, as I go to conferences, I share all the stuff that I've learned at a conference or the things that are being said, or, listening to Nick Martin the other day talk about, are you the fireman that you want showing up at your house? Right. And like asking those guys those questions at the kitchen table or sitting outside and getting into some of those deep dive conversations sometimes. I think that's half of what drives the culture, right? I mean, that's what these kids. Eddie just told me that the other day. He's like, I've learned more sitting at this back of the bay table than I have at any other training thing or whatever, because we just talk firemanship the whole time. And I mean, him and I were out there till 12:30 the other night. Like finally, I'm like, I gotta go to bed. Like,
Yeah.
but you get in these conversations that you're like, holy shit, it's been 2 hours, and I didn't realize it's been 2 hours. We've been sitting out here, right? So that's another part that I love. I mean, that to me, that's the best part of the day, right? I look forward to that part of the day, the meal and sitting down with the guys and then going and sitting outside on a nice night and just hanging out and bullshitting and you
Yeah.
know,
Enjoying the company of a
yeah,
firehouse. What's it all about.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Cool.
Good stuff.
All right,
all right.
fellas, I appreciate it. We'll see. Chip, thank you for your time, man. And thanks for being the
Yeah, absolutely.
first guest on this. Hopefully we'll have another conversation in a couple, maybe a month or so with another star from the St. Louis area. But if
Yeah,
not, great having you here. The first and the last. No, we'll do this again.
yeah.
Um,
Hopefully it works.
no, it's good. It's good. I think these conversations and just, knowing, sometimes that there are winds going on. It's easy to get distracted and get discouraged in the fire service, and especially in our region and our area sometimes, and not focus on what's important. And, I think what's important is, come to work every day, be a firefighter, train like a firefighter, do the right things and do it for the right reasons and have fun, have fun while you're coming to work. There's no reason we should be in firehouses and not enjoying ourselves. So,
Yeah, for sure.
all right.
Good seeing you,
Thanks,
Chip.
gentlemen.
You too, bro.